acquire information, pass it on through data links, and use it to exploit airspace, hit targets on the air or on the ground or out at sea. All of those sensors, radars, technology, low observability, the fly-by-wire control system, the new generations of weapons that you've got online, they all have to work all together. Because otherwise, after 10 years, if it doesn't work all together, you're tinkering with it and you're fixing it, and you get into a situation where it's taken 15, 20 years for this to actually be the way you want it, then you're already far behind the curve. Look at how far behind the curve we are with the Tejas. I love the aircraft. The engineering is excellent. The made in India AESA radar is actually quite good. The fly-by-wire quadruple redundant is superb, right? The platform is ancient. The weapons carriage is ancient. The range is insufficient. It was built as a MiG-21 replacement. The Pakistanis have now got the J-10, which is not even a fifth generation aircraft, and are acquiring the J-35. So we've not even started. We've not rolled out the prototype of the Tejas Mark II. So therefore, if you're talking about the AMCA.
Even the Mark 1A hasn't been delivered
That's
yet.
right. That's right. So if we are talking about the J-35, right, of the Pakistanis, which is coming around now, then, they've got a big lead. And if you're talking about the AMCA, we don't want the AMCA to be 10 years from now what the Tejas is technology-wise with regard to where we stand vis-a-vis the Chinese and the Pakistanis.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
Some say sport is a matter of life and death. The truth is, it is far more serious than that. Sport is about ecstasy and agony, about pain and suffering, about joy and much more. Some say there's no one better to tell these stories. So here I am. Join me, Boria Majumdar, on India's #1 news network.
You are watching the world 24/7 on the NDTV network. I am Parmeshwar Bava, an action-packed bulletin lined up for you. Let's begin with the top stories you need to know. US President Donald Trump has hinted at reaching a new trade deal with India soon, while a trade deal with the European Union could also possibly be finalized. The Israeli military struck the Syrian defense ministry in Damascus twice as it intervened in the clashes between the Syrian army and the Druze fighters in southern Syria and the country's deadliest violence in months. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Al-Khamenei has said that it is ready to respond to any renewed military attack and that it could deliver an even bigger blow to its adversaries than what it gave during the 12-day war with Israel. Hours after the Yemeni authorities deferred the execution of Indian nurse Nimisha Priya until a new date was announced, the brother of Talal Ad-Omeri, the Yemeni man she murdered in 2017, has said that his family does not wish anything less than the execution of the convict, reports state. The US resumed deportation flights to so-called third countries after Supreme Court cleared the way for the controversial practice. China is building an underwater data center to reduce cooling costs. This as demand for computing power is skyrocketing with the growth of artificial intelligence. In fact, China began constructing this underwater data center about 6 miles off Shanghai in June. Our big focus, US President Donald Trump has hinted at reaching a new trade agreement with India soon, while a trade deal with the European Union could also possibly be finalized. But it would be too soon to say if a deal with Canada can be agreed upon as the tariff deadline looms. India and the US, as you know, have been holding negotiations for the trade pact primarily to keep the tariffs below 20%. And during an interview with Real America's Voice on Wednesday, Trump was asked which trade deals were on the horizon, and he responded saying, "We're very close to India and we could possibly make a deal with the European Union." Do note the change in stance here. In fact, the US president told reporters that they made a deal with Indonesia. They have full access into Indonesia, saying his administration is going to announce a few other trade deals and also mentioned India in that context too. By the way, the comments made by the US president come as an Indian delegation arrived in Washington on Monday to discuss and actually finalize trade deals. The EU trade chief, meanwhile, was also on the way to Washington for tariff discussions. Just listen in to Donald Trump's latest remarks.
We had one yesterday, that was announced. We have another one coming up, maybe with India. I don't know. We're in negotiation. When I send out a letter, that's a deal. In other words, that's a deal. The best deal we can make is to send out a letter. And the letter says that you'll pay 30%, 35%, 25%, 20%. We're very close to a deal with India where they open it up.
Sakshi Bajaj has been tracking the finer developments. She joins us live at the moment. Sakshi, so during this latest interview, Trump has said that he's close to a trade deal with India and possibly a deal with the European Union, which is quite a change in stance, right?
That's right. Another day, another interview, and another remark really from US President Donald Trump. Him very clearly saying the US is close to a trade deal with India now. This just a day after him saying that, look, the US has access to the Indian trade market. Now, what is India saying? First, for our viewers to understand, India is very clearly saying that, look, the Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal has said that the progress of the talks are taking place at a fast pace and they are looking at a deal in sight. However, very clearly, India has drawn red lines as far as the dairy and agriculture sectors are concerned. Now, as far as the European Union is concerned, remember, a very crucial trading partner there for the US, Donald Trump's stance has clearly taken a 360-degree turn, with him now saying there is a possibility of a trade deal. Remember, this comes in the backdrop of various other nations now looking at trade deals with Europe as well, and therefore his remarks are again getting investors glued into what's next.
Sakshi, thanks so much for joining us with the latest. The other crucial headline we're tracking, Israel bombed the Syrian army headquarters in Damascus after warning the Islamist-led government to leave the Druze minority alone in its Sweida heartland, where a war monitor says sectarian clashes have killed nearly 250 people. Syrian government forces entered the majority Druze city of Sweida in the country's south with the stated aim of overseeing a ceasefire agreed with the Druze community leaders after clashes with local Bedouin tribes left dozens dead. This fighting, though, marks the most serious outbreak of violence in Syria since government forces battled Druze fighters in Sweida province and near Damascus in April and May, leaving more than 100 people dead. Here's what the US and Israel are saying. Listen in, followed by a report from Al Jazeera.
These are historic, long-time rivalries between different groups in the south-west of Syria, Bedouins, the Druze community, and it led to an unfortunate situation and a misunderstanding, it looks like, between the Israeli side and the Syrian side. So we've been engaged with them all morning long and all night long with both sides, and we think we're on our way towards a real de-escalation and then hopefully get back on track in helping Syria build a country and arriving at a situation there in the Middle East is far more stable. So in the next few hours, we hope to see some real progress to end what you've been seeing over the last couple hours.
אחיי אזרחי ישראל הדרוזים, המצב בסווידה, המצב בדרום מערב סוריה, הוא חמור מאוד. צה"ל פועל, חיל האוויר פועל, כוחות אחרים פועלים. אנחנו פועלים כדי להציל את אחינו הדרוזים וכדי לחסל את כנופיות המשטר. ועכשיו יש לי בקשה אחת מכם. אתם, אזרחי ישראל, אל תעברו את הגבול. אתם מסכנים את חייכם, אתם יכולים להירצח, אתם יכולים להיחטף, ואתם פוגעים במאמצים של צה"ל. ולכן אני מבקש מכם, חזרו לבתיכם, תנו לצה"ל לפעול.
هاوی دار دمات باش به از یک سر دیمه نابت متا
The past few days saw dozens of civilians and military forces killed in intense clashes between Druze armed factions and Sunni Bedouin tribes alongside Syrian government forces in the country's Sweida province. What started as a series of tit-for-tat kidnappings spiraled into series rounds of fighting as tensions have simmered between the Druze and Syria's new Islamist-led government, which led the movement that toppled President Bashar al-Assad in early December. The interim government has promised to include the Druze, a small Islamic offshoot largely based in Syria, but has so far kept the authority. The Druze, like other minority groups in Syria, have been skeptical of those promises. Meanwhile, the Israeli army struck near the entrance of the Syrian Ministry of Defense in Damascus. Israel has launched a series of airstrikes on convoys of government forces in southern Syria since the clashes erupted and has beefed up forces on the border. It threatened to further intervene to back the Druze in the country. A number of Druze live in the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights and are related to those in Syria.
Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government lost its parliamentary majority after the ultra-Orthodox Shas party announced its decision to quit the ruling coalition. Shah cited disagreements over a proposed law related to military draft exemptions for religious students. The party actually opposes legislation that could limit the broad exemptions traditionally granted to ultra-Orthodox men. The departure of Shah follows the earlier exit of another ultra-Orthodox party, which is the United Torah Judaism, UTJ, which quit the coalition earlier this week over the same dispute. Now, with both religious parties that have quit, they're outside the government. Netanyahu is left leading a minority coalition, complicating his ability to pass legislation and manage internal pressure from far-right allies. This, as Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has said that it is ready to respond to any renewed military attack and that it could deliver an even bigger blow to its adversaries than what it did during that 12-day war with Israel. Khamenei has said, and I quote, "The fact that our nation is ready to face the power of the United States and its dog on a leash, the regime, as in Israel, is very praiseworthy." Last month, the United States had launched strikes on Iran's nuclear and military facilities, as we had covered, although Iran has said that its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes only. But just listen in to Iran's supreme leader's latest remarks.
اینی که یک ملت، یک کشور، یک نیروی نظامی در یک کشور در خودش این اعتماد به نفس رو ملاحظه کنه که آماده است با قدرت آمریکا و سگ زنجیریش در منطقه رژیم صهیونی سینه به سینه بشه، به رو به رو بشه، نفس این اراده، نفس این اعتماد به نفس، این یک ارزش بسیار بسیار مهم. ملت به اینجا رسیده که مستقیم میایسته سینه به سینه این قدرت، از او نمیترسه بلکه او رو میترسانه.
Let's switch tracks now. Well, efforts to save Nimisha Priya, who was sentenced to death by Yemen for killing Talal Abdomehdi, her husband, whom she had accused of harassment, may have suffered a setback because of media reports focusing on blood money or cash offered to his family in exchange for a pardon. Samuel Jerome, who's a social worker in Yemen battling to bring the Kerala nurse home, has told NDTV that Mr. Mehdi's brother was angry after media reports seemed to show the family more interested in the money than justice. But Mr. Jerome told NDTV he is working to repair and restore relations with Mr. Mehdi's family. This, Mr. Jerome said, was after reports from India claimed that $1 million would be paid in blood money for Mr. Mehdi's family, who would then forgive Ms. Priya and lift the death sentence over her. Vishnu Shom spoke to Samuel Jerome. Listen in.
You are working to save the life of Nimisha Priya. Can we take for granted at this stage that you have won this battle, or is it still ongoing?
Nobody has won anything. People have to understand there's something. So that's a very, that would be a very, a very out of context statement. What we have done is we have gained some time to plead mercy to the family. And having said that, if people cannot be in the shoes of the victim, that is Mr. Talal, and the family of Abdul Fattah, we can never achieve this. So because why I'm saying this, all along in India, the issue of Nimisha has been highlighted, and all along people has been saying there is blood money negotiations. The term blood money negotiation itself is very wrong. I had met the brother. I've met the brother twice, and I met the father once, and it was just pleading for mercy. We cannot go there and sit and ask and say how much money you take. That's totally upset. I don't know how people in India think about that, though. And also my relationship with the family has been built since 2017. Slow, steady. During every court hearing, I used to go. I used to talk to him. I used to shake my hands, and kind of meeting them, and like this. That is how I built a trust over all this long period. Now, yesterday, unfortunately, because of all the media things that came up and all those things, we really had a setback that the brother posted that he was absolutely not interested in anything. That's really a very big setback.
No, but what is the situation now?
Honestly, this is something, a time where I should have been sitting and planning and thinking how I can move forward. But then all the bridges that I built all this year has been burnt down. That is the fact of the matter, So now I have to again build the bridges.
Well, in other news, the United States resumed deportation flights to so-called third countries after the Supreme Court cleared the way for the controversial practice. So 5 migrants from 5 different countries were flown on Tuesday to the small southern African nation of Eswatini, and the Donald Trump administration has previously sent deportees to El Salvador and South Sudan as part of its intensifying immigration crackdown, drawing scrutiny and legal challenges, as you can imagine. But by the way, it's not unheard of for governments to deport people to countries they aren't from. Australia sends asylum seekers to offshore processing facilities in Pacific Island nations, and the UK's previous government struck a similar deal with Rwanda, as we had covered. But that plan cost more than $900 million, and only a total of 4 migrants were actually transferred. By the way, to grow its economy, China is betting big on artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and other digital tech. And a big part of that bet involves rapidly building data centers to boost computing power. But these massive collections of servers gobble up growing amounts of energy, and each one cycles through hundreds of thousands of gallons of water a day to carry away the heat they generate. That actually means these facilities in China and beyond will increasingly compete with water demand linked directly to human survival, from agriculture to daily drinking. And many companies have cited their data centers in some of the driest regions of the world, including Arizona, parts of Spain, the Middle East, because dry air reduces the risks of damage to the equipment from humidity. But China, by the way, is addressing this underwater. Partly to address water concerns, China is now putting a data center in the wettest place there is, which is the ocean. So this June, construction actually began on a wind-powered underwater data center about 6 miles off the coast of Shanghai, one of China's AI hubs. The latest updates and news continue in a moment right here on NDTV. Slipping into a very quick break now. Do stay tuned.
sleepless for sports. We are reloading sports NDTV style. With the biggest comeback this season, India's OG sports journalist on India's #1 news network.
No games, just sports.
Sports coverage levels up with Boria Majumdar on NDTV.
When facts are fragmented, we put the pieces together. Where power collides with truth, we are there.
Behind me is that massive security arrangements that are in place.
Behind fractured boundaries, we clear the fog of war. Fault Lines with Gauri Dwivedi, only on NDTV World.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
Pressure on the Indian Air Force to get fighters. Forget about stealth aircraft. The Indian government has made it clear that we're going to bet on the AMCA, which is India's own fighter. But getting these 4.5 generation fighters like the Rafale, which you've already sunk an enormous amount of money into, even the Indian Navy has signed on for them recently, and there are still these delays. But with this announcement, Vishnu, and that's my next question now, I'm wondering whether this means that things are much clearer as far as the MRFA, or we still can't jump the gun on that. I know as far as Indian procurement is concerned, nothing is over until it's over, right? Nothing is over until it's over, especially when the Rafale is theoretically competing against American fighters like the F-15 Eagle II. Yeah. You've got Putin's Sukhoi 35s. You've got the Typhoon theoretically as well. So it ain't over until it's over, and I completely agree with you on that. But by putting out this partnership, and this is not an MOU, this is an agreement which I'm assuming is going to fructify into a joint venture.
Yeah. 2028
is when the first fuselages will roll out. Which again, I'm assuming means that work begins now. 2028 is 2 years away. That's like more than just a foot in the door.
No, I would suggest that they are leading in this competition. Yeah. All the Indian Air Force officers that we speak to, and they couch this language carefully, so I'm going to be responsible in how I report this. They say that they've had an exceptional experience with the Rafale. The Rafale is the aircraft of choice for them, but they...
Welcome back. Let's shift our focus now to our neighborhood, to Bangladesh, where violence erupted at a rally of youth-led National Citizen Party in the southern town of Gopalganj, with 4 people killed and more injured, according to local media. Deadly student-led protests forced long-time Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to flee to India in August last year, and since then, there have been delays over promised reforms, growing protests, as well as political division in Bangladesh. Meanwhile, Pragnananda has taken down Magnus Carlsen in the 4th round of rapid chess at the Las Vegas Freestyle Chess Grand Slam Tour. He played a superb game with the white pieces to beat the former world champion. And with this win, Pragnananda is the sole leader of his group with 3.5 out of 4 points. There will be 3 more rounds of rapid chess played. The top 4 players from the 2 groups will make it to the winners' bracket. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has lashed out against his own supporters, calling them gullible weaklings for questioning the transparency of a secretive government inquiry into the late high-profile socialite and sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The US president is struggling to contain a political crisis within his usually loyal Make America Great Again base, his MAGA base, over suspicion that the administration is hiding details of Epstein's crimes to protect the rich elite Epstein associated with, which included Donald Trump. Nvidia is back in action with its China sales and the market is cheering. The chip giant has received the green light from the US government to resume exports of its advanced H20 AI chips to China, according to multiple sources. The announcement triggered a strong market response, with Nvidia's stock price jumping 4.47% in pre-market trading. AMD, by the way, also rode the wave, gaining 3.18% to hit the $150.89 pre-market. The news, which signals a potential easing in US-China chip tensions, is drawing serious attention from investors, analysts, and AI industry leaders. Meanwhile, a rare oil portrait of Mahatma Gandhi, believed to be the only one he sat for the artist to paint, has fetched triple its estimate at £152,800 or 1.75 crore rupees in an auction in London. This painting, which had never before been offered at auction, had been on offer for an online auction with a guide price range between £50,000 and £70,000 and was the top lot of the travel and exploration sale. Meanwhile, a volcanic eruption in southwestern Iceland has once again forced the evacuation of local residents and the internationally known Blue Lagoon geothermal spa. The eruption began around 4 a.m. on Wednesday local time, following an intense swarm on the peninsula southwest of the capital. Some 100 people were evacuated shortly after this activity began, and tourists at a campsite and guests at the Blue Lagoon were forced to quickly pack their bags. In other news, 2 stars of the Harry Potter films, including actress Emma Watson, were each banned from driving for 6 months after being caught speeding in separate incidents. Emma Watson, who is still a student, already had 9 penalty points on her license prior to this speeding offence. Now she has been ordered to pay a total of £1,044 by a court. She, by the way, was banned for driving at 38 miles an hour in a 30-mile zone in southeastern Banbury last July. And let's switch tracks to Spain now, where there was an Indian business community diaspora engagement program that was attended by the Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Mohan Yadav. Here's a glimpse for you.
यशस्वी प्रधानमंत्री के नेतृत्व में जिस प्रकार से हमारी भारत सरकार ने हमको छूट दी है और मध्य प्रदेश उनके दिल के ज़्यादा करीब भी है, इस नाते से मैं माननीय मोदी जी की तरफ से भी और मध्य प्रदेश राज्य में जब बिजली, पानी, लैंड बैंक, मानव संपदा, सभी प्रकार की एक विकास करने के साथ साथ व्यापार करने की जो आवश्यकता होती है, वो सारी बातों को आपके साथ जोड़कर देखते हैं। तो मैं इस तरह से बोल सकता हूं कि आज इस पूरी बिजनेस मीटिंग में जिस दृष्टि से मंच से बात हुई है, उतनी गंभीरता से आपने सबने भी सुना है।
Thank you so much for investing your time and watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, we'll keep tracking the latest for you. Do stay tuned.
Some say sport is a matter of life and death. The truth is, it is far more serious than that. Sport is about ecstasy and agony, about pain and suffering, about joy and much more. Some say there's no one better to tell these stories. So here I am, Join me, Boria Majumdar, on India's #1 news network.
When facts are fragmented, we put the pieces together. Where power collides with truth, we are there.
Behind me is that massive security arrangements that are in place.
Behind fractured boundaries, we clear the fog of war. Fault lines with Gauri Dwivedi, only on NDTV World.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
From interesting tech startups to industry-leading companies, politics, sports, culture, curry, cricket. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Like me, if you too thrive on interesting conversations, this is a show you cannot miss. Watch this space to know more about all matters and all people that make Britain what it is today. Out of Britain, with me, Radhika Iyer.
When facts are fragmented, we put the pieces together. Where power collides with truth, we are there.
Behind me is that massive security arrangements that are in place.
Behind fractured boundaries, we clear the fog of war. Fault lines with Gauri Dwivedi, only on NDTV World.
This is NDTV, and you're watching NDTV 24/7.
Hi, good morning. You're watching NDTV 24/7. I'm Divya Vadva. We have a whole lot lined up for you, including Israeli strikes. Damascus, the capital of Syria. We'll get you all the details. First, let's get you the headlines. Israeli strikes rock Syrian capital Damascus, and the Israel escalation is in support of the Arab minority group. So Israeli army first struck a military target in the area of the Syrian presidential palace, but before that bombed the army headquarters in Damascus. Now the United States is saying that they're on their way to de-escalation in order to bring this troubling and horrifying situation to an end that they're expecting tonight. And Donald Trump hints at reaching a new trade deal with India, and that's going to be happening soon, is what Donald Trump is saying. The United States is working on that deal, and it is going to give access to the Indian market. Trump says we're going to have access into India. Outrage over Odisha campus horror and protests over the death of the 20-year-old student who self-immolated herself. Now, opposition unites with that 12-hour bandha taking place over the